Hey guys, welcome back to today's video and welcome if you are new. My name is Charissa. Today I have a fun little book video for you guys. I've been seeing the Booktuber Newbie Tag going around on YouTube and I figured it would be super fun to kind of jump on that, talk about some books with you guys, and just kind of talk all things books. I feel like it's been a hot minute since I've just sat down and solely talked about books, so I'm kind of excited about it. I do want to caveat this with I tried my hardest not to repeat any books, but it's a little bit difficult. A lot of the questions were very similar, so I tried my best, but there are a couple that I did end up repeating on, and I'm so sorry, but I did the best that I could do. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Since there are a lot of questions, I kind of want to get through it pretty quickly if I can, so that's not the world's longest video for you. So the first question is, what book got you into reading? Which already off the bat is kind of a difficult question for me because I kind of have always been reading. Ever since I was super little, I remember loving to go to the library and get as many books as possible and just read them constantly. Of course, they were like little kid like chapter books, but I always loved it. My first memory of reading would be the American Girl short stories, which I'll put a picture here for you guys because I don't have any physical copies of them. I've been keeping my eye out at used bookstores around town to see if anybody has them, but they haven't had any. I did see that there's some listings on eBay, so I might snatch those up because I would just love to have those copies because, like I said, those are like the first books I have like a full memory of reading. But then of course after that we jump into Nancy Drew books. Of course, like as I got older, started reading Nancy Drew books, really got into mysteries when I started getting a little bit older, but I'm talking like pre-teens. Then after Nancy Drew, the books that I really like fully remember as feeling like kind of adult books or more mature books would be the Twilight series. I definitely was into my teens. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I remember like reading these books and like really getting hooked on like the longer, thick books with these ones. So do with that what you will. Didn't really get me into reading, but those are like books I very specifically remember reading. The next question is genre you read the most, which quite honestly, I don't know that I have a very specific genre that I gravitate towards. I really like almost anything, especially if there's a nice, no spice love story in there is kind of my go-to. I love a love story, but also like just general fiction. I'll read those, historical fiction, sci-fi, kind of anything. Like I'm really into it. I will say though, which leads me into the next question, is your least favorite genre. And that's honestly easier for me to answer because that is hands down going to be fantasy. Sorry, but I just don't like fantasy at all. Not my thing. Now I have read some fantasy books, obviously, and I can do like, was it low fantasy, where it's kind of just like modern day kind of a deal with like magic thrown in there, and so obviously it's considered fantasy because there's magical elements, but it's not like high fantasy where there's just like fae and world building and wars and all that kind of stuff. Not my jam. Do not like it. As well as just hardcore romance books. Just not my thing. So those are the two genres that I don't like, and then basically I'm willing to try really anything else, fiction-wise anyway, is kind of what I'm into. Next question is, what book do you tell everybody is your favorite? Is it really possible for a book lover to pick a favorite book? I don't think so. But one book that always comes to mind when people are like, oh, what's your favorite book to read? Is going to be The Host by Stephenie Meyer. I don't know what it is about this book, but I absolutely love it. I've read it multiple times. I just love the story. I do not love the movie. Gotta say, it was a pretty rough movie. So do not base this book off of that movie if you've not read the book. But I love this concept, this story. I've learned over time that I'm apparently a sci-fi reader. I didn't realize that until I started like looking over my books and realizing, oh wait, most of my favorite books are sci-fi. Probably my favorite, if not just one of my favorites. And then the next is book you've reread the most, which gotta say this was neck and neck with The Host, but I think I have read this one maybe one or two times more, and that would be New Moon the second book in the Twilight series. I don't know why, but I just love this book. Well, I do know why. I love Jacob Black. I just love him. And this is where like most of their story is in New Moon. I've reread this so many times. It's just like a comfort book to me. I'll randomly just pick it up and open to a random page and just read a chapter, skim through it, flip through it. I love this book, and I've read it so many times I couldn't even tell you how many times I've read it. So here's a fun one. What book does everybody else love that you didn't? I hope I don't offend anybody, but that has got to be Six of Crows. Now, I will say I didn't like hate this book, but I really didn't like it. It just was too much for me. And obviously I know it kind of goes along with genres I don't like. Obviously this is a fantasy book, but even that aside, it just is so complicated and it was so much work to read it. And I think the biggest issue that I had was the 6 points of view, or is it point of views? Points of view? I don't know, but 6 of them was just excessive to me and so hard to keep track of. And not only is it from 6 different people, but each person is from a different country or land or whatever and speaks a different language, and they have terms and words for different things, and it's just very complicated to me anyway. Just a lot to keep up with. And I know that there's like the Shadow and Bone that you could read beforehand, but I don't even think that would help it with what I'm talking about was complicated. It just was a lot to take in, and like I said, it was just too much work. Anyway, that's that. Just didn't love it. Next is a book that deserves all the hype that it gets, and I will have to say this is a very recent read for me, and it is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I was skeptical going into this one because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna love it, but I did. It was good. I definitely think it deserves all the hype that it gets, and I feel like it's a great read for someone who wants some, historical fiction. It really gets you thinking. That's what I love about this one too. Like, it made me think a lot about stuff, and I just kept thinking about it when I wasn't reading it and couldn't wait to like pick it back up, and kept thinking about it. I like still think about it even after finishing reading it. So definitely worth the hype. Next one is book you've read the fastest, which is kind of hard for me to like determine. I don't know, like what book I've read the fastest, but one that I guess stands out to me would be Just One Wish by Jeanette Rawlinson. I read this one a long time ago. For like the first time I read it was a long time ago, and it's a short little YA fiction, but I remember I read it probably like in a few hours, and then that same, like as soon as I closed the book that same day, I reopened it and started it from the beginning. I loved this book that much. It was so good. I needed to have it, so I bought like a used copy of it because that's all I could find online. But it was just such a good book, and I read it very quickly. Next is a book that deserves more hype, which I could just be not seeing it around, but for me, it's The Do-Over. I've seen people talk about this book and review this book and say that they do not love it, which I was surprised by because I actually really loved it. So I don't know if it's just who I follow, who I'm watching, and just their opinions on it. It just happened to all be that they don't love it, and maybe there's people out there who really do love it, but I just think it deserves a little bit more hype. I personally prefer this book over Better Than the Movies. I don't know, I just like it a lot and think we should give it a little bit more hype than what I've been hearing. Let's scooch these over. Next question is book that you usually recommend. Again, another hard one because I really take into account the person, what kind of genres they like, and if they've read a lot, if they haven't read a lot, and they're trying to get into reading. Like, there's a lot of nuances to that question, I feel, but just off the bat, thinking off the top of my head, would probably be the Naturals series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It's just such an easy read and very quick. It's very fast paced. It's exciting. There's a lot to it. The characters are great. There's only 4 books in the series, so it's not like you're diving into like a 10, 15, 20 book series. There's extra books to it, so it's not just the one, but it's not too long of a series either. And I just feel like it's just very interesting for someone who maybe isn't a big reader to pick it up, and it's not too intimidating and too long of a book. A book you thought you would hate but loved. And for me would be Love and Gelato by, was it Jenna Evans Welch? This book, I don't know why I didn't think I'd love it. I think because I've learned that a lot of books that everybody really seems to like love and obsess over just are not my speed, not my kind of books. So I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna love that one, but I absolutely did. It was a great read, highly recommend. Of course, we're going into fall now, but it's a great summer read. But honestly, you could read it whenever, it's still a good book. The next question is a book that made you cry, which this is going to be my first repeat, and that is, shocking I know, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I sobbed, I cried like a baby, it happened, it was a great time. So I could have picked, I don't know, any number of books. I have a lot of books that I've cried at, but that was the one most recently that like really stood out as one that really got me. Next we have a book that you wish you could read for the first time again. For me, I think that would have to be Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is another one of my favorite books. This book, I don't know how I managed it, but I went into this book completely blind, not having any clue what it was about, other than that it's set in Alice in Wonderland like world. And so I was like, oh, this is a cute little book, and I'm reading it, and the ending got me so good. I was so shocked. I love this book. Like I said, don't know how I was so surprised by the ending, but I was. So if I could go back and reread this book for the first time and do it again blind, would just be amazing. I highly recommend, if anyone's gonna read this book and you haven't heard anything about it yet, go into it blind because it's so much better, so much better. I need a little drink of my coffee. All right, next we have a book with your favorite characters. And this is gonna be my last repeat, which is The Naturals. I just love the characters in this book. In this series, and I love that you get to like follow them throughout the other books and really get to know them and understand them. And I just feel like they're just so good. I don't think there's really any character in these books that I don't like, except for maybe the serial killers, because you know, serial killers. But other than that, I love all the characters in these books. Next one is A World You Wish You Could Live In. This one is a little bit funny, and you're gonna have to bear with me a moment, but that is going to be The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Obviously, I know like this is set modern day, it's set in Texas, obviously it already exists, but I'm talking like the world and the whole concept of living in a giant mansion full of puzzles and secret passageways and mystery and figuring things out just sounds so cool to me. I love a puzzle. I love trying to figure things out. I've never been to any place with a secret passageway, but I would absolutely love it. And then also like the aspect of like her just having oodles of money that she doesn't even know what to do with, and just like living that life of luxury, even just for like a day, would be so cool. And I just feel like that would be a really nice world to live in. And compared to all the other books that I have where it's like Stalking Jack the Ripper and The Naturals, like really don't wanna jump into that story. So this is the one I choose. A book that could get someone out of a reading slump. And for me, that would probably have to be Rock, Paper, Scissors, or something like Rock, Paper, Scissors, where it's just like a quick mystery thriller, keeps you on your toes, not too long, and you just want to know what happens next, and you just keep flipping the pages. I just feel like it's a good book for that. A book you think everyone should read, and for me it's gonna probably have to be another one of my all-time favorites, which is All Our Yesterdays by Kristen Terrell. This book is one of my all-time favorite books. I love this book so much. I never hear anyone talk about it, so I feel like it would be a great one for everyone to take a chance and read and maybe enjoy. I don't know, but it's got time travel in it. I do love a book with time travel. So I guess this is again another sci-fi. So. And then we have a book that would make a great movie. I think one that could potentially be good would be Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. This one, again, ironically enough, is about time travel. This one also I think would be considered a fantasy because they're like monsters and it's like got magic in it and all of that. But I do think that this would be a great one to potentially have as a movie, mostly because with the time traveling, they don't just like immediately jump back to, you know, like the 1800s or the 1600s or whatever. Like initially I think they go back to like the 90s, and so like more recent history. So I just think it's really cool and super interesting and like just a great concept. It also has like a love triangle slash enemies to lovers and that kind of a thing, a little bit of action and all that kind of stuff. I feel like this could make potentially a pretty good movie. This stack is getting very high. We are getting close to the end, guys. We only got a couple left, so we can do it. A book you wish everyone would give a shot. Like I said, I feel like this is similar to like my other questions of like a book that everyone should read, that kind of thing. So, you know, just kind of going with it. And I guess I would say Between the Notes. It's a random book that I picked up from the used bookstore. Wasn't expecting to love it, but did. It's just a really sweet YA general fiction, I would say, about a girl whose family kind of just out of the blue ends up kind of like losing everything and having to like move and learn to live a new lifestyle of having less money, and they move to like the wrong side of the tracks is what it says. And so just kind of having to like figure that out and work together as a family to figure out adjusting to a completely different lifestyle than you're used to. And of course there's like the guy I think like next door, and he's like the bad boy or whatever, and you know, they get to know each other's circumstances, and you know, ends up being a very cute book. So I feel like it's definitely one worth people at least giving a shot and seeing if they like it. Then we finally come to the last question, which is a book you'll never forget. Now hear me out. For this one, I went a little bit different route because pretty much all of these books here, like especially the ones that I love, I'll never forget because they're books that I love. But for this question, I went the route of a book I'll never forget because it's weird. And ironically enough, it's also a book I've never finished because it's crazy. This book is a fever dream, if I ever read one. I don't even know how to describe this book. I've read it so many times trying to like think, oh, maybe if I read it again, I'll understand it. Or it's been a few years, let's pick it up. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe now that I've read more books and I understand, you know, authors more and like writing styles more, maybe I'll finally get it. No. And I'll never forget this book because it's just the weirdest thing I've ever tried to read, and it's Vasa in the Night. It is apparently based off of like a Russian folktale? Yeah, Russian folktale, Vasilisa the Beautiful. Never heard of that. So apparently it's like got like a folktale background to the story. I don't even know. Like I said, I've never gotten to the end of it. It's fairly like thin book. I cannot finish it because every time I try to read it, I'm like, what is going on? The weirdest elements and details and like just things like the chicken store, which sounds, you know, not that crazy. Oh no, it's crazy. So it doesn't sell chicken. It is a store with chicken legs, just like these giant chicken legs on the bottom of the store, and it'll like stand up and just start dancing every once in a while, and then you need to like try and jump into the door while it's like dancing around. What? And then in the store there's like the cashier or something who thinks everyone's stealing something, and so she like I think kills you. Yeah, that's what it is. If she finds out that you stole something, she'll behead them and put their heads on stakes in front of the store or something crazy like that. And then like the girl's dad like left her family, and you're like, oh well, that's sad. No, he left the family because he believes he's a dog, and he dresses up in a dog costume and walks around the city like barking and acting like a dog. And she's like, my dad's not my dad anymore because he's a dog. And you're like, okay, fine, then that's a little weird. But then she falls in love with the dude, and he's like, he is the stars, but he rides a motorcycle. I don't know. So anyway, those are details I will never forget because they're really, really weird. So that's a book I'll never forget. Maybe one day I'll like read that book from beginning to end. But like I've said, I've had that book maybe 10 years now or longer. I have not been able to do it. Maybe at some point I can. But that is all of the books that I have to talk about in today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, you know, kind of getting to know my book style, reading style a little bit more, and what some of my favorite books are, what some of my not so favorite books are, you know, all that fun stuff. But if you did enjoy today's video, as always, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time in my next video.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights.